Oh my God.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the next session for Dare to Be Great 2. On day 3, the last day of the conference. Oh man, it has been something else, but it has been great. There have been tons of people joining, and it has just been an awesome experience. Thank you to all the attendees, to all the speakers, to all the sponsors, everyone. Thank you so much for making this such a great success. This session is going to be with the We Speak Dispatch crew, and it's on a session called A 911 Journey. We have got Glenna, Joe, and Doug. Take it away.
Woo! Welcome, everybody, to the We Speak Dispatch episode of the Dare to Be Great conference. I want to tell you a little bit about who We Speak Dispatch is, just briefly, because this is a positive thing that came from COVID. A lot of us knew each other, and when COVID hit, we decided to start streaming live and talking to each other. And we all work in the 911 profession or are recently retired. Congratulations, Doug. And we would get together and talk about 911 topics and training topics. And a lot of us travel around the world and around the nation talking to 911 dispatchers. And we said, everybody else needs to hear this.
Yes.
So, Doug, just go ahead and say a few words about yourself and Glenna so they know who you guys are as well.
Well, go ahead, Glenn. I'll let you go first.
Oh, thank you. Because I wasn't prepared for that. I'm Glenna. I work for a police agency in Southern California. I've been a 911 dispatcher for 24 years. My current assignment is the interim supervisor while my boss is out on maternity leave. So as of December, I will be just a dispatcher again, and I so can't wait.
How dare you? How dare you?
I know. In addition to that, I run our department's peer support program. I'm a tactical dispatcher, training officer. Absolutely love my job. Have my own business on the side that I kind of dabble in, like all of us do. And I absolutely love this We Speak Dispatch. It's great. I'm so blessed to be a part of it. Thank you.
All right. I got to go back to Joe here for a second because Joe said we used to get together and just talk. Well, we actually had Zoom happy hours, so it's more fun. But if you don't know who I am, Doug Showalter. I retired from the Highway Patrol, California Highway Patrol, in December after being on about 30 years. I have my own business where I travel around the country teaching dispatchers with Showalter and Company. Visit us on Facebook, Instagram. Our website's www.showaltercompany.com. We just recently became incorporated, which is great. And nothing I'd rather do than hang out with dispatch folks because they're just so much fun. You'll see during this broadcast, we like to have a lot of fun. So there you go.
Right. And I'm Joe from 911 Gold Line Training. Also did a session recently earlier during the conference. Go check that out as I launched the program 911leadershipgold.com. But today's topic is going to be a 911 journey. And it's going to talk about a new hire. We wanted to make sure we touch base with every one of you that's watching, whether you're a new hire just starting, somebody that's 3 to 5 years and maybe experiencing a little burnout, or somebody that's a CTO, supervisor, manager, director. So we're going to kind of take the journey along the way over the hour. This is technically what we would do for about 3 episodes. Our normal episodes are about 15 to 18 minutes long. So you're going to get to see about 3 episodes wrapped into one. But we typically have 4 people. And we need one more person to join us. And we reached out to a very special guest that a lot of you may know. I just got a text message from them that they're finally ready. And I think they're going to rejoin us on screen for this episode from We Speak.
Who is it?
Who is it? Ricardo! Everybody.
Yeah, I sent him a text message from the bathroom. I had to go to the bathroom quick. I'm like, all right, man, I'm ready now.
Where's Brian? He's got to hear this.
All right. Before I ask the first question of the panelists, I did this last time and I want to do it again. If you could just 100% of you, 1,796 people that are watching, if all of you guys could comment the city and the state or the country that you're watching from so that Ricardo, this is the second to last session, can go back and watch the impact that he's making around the nation and around the world. If you guys could 100% participate that and keep the comments going all through our session, so he can go back and watch this later on, I'd appreciate it. But
and there they come.
Melissa, good job, Melissa.
And with that
one thing, just before you get going, one thing we do on our little 15-minute segments is we do not tell each other the questions we're going to ask, which makes it really fun to throw them at people. So
So you're going to see as we pass this baton on the episode, Doug, Glenn, and Ricardo don't know my questions. I don't know Glenna's, and nobody else knows Doug's. And so we're going to start that you're a new employee in 911. Or thinking back to your first day, what's something your trainer or your agency did to welcome you, or that you wish they would have done to welcome you to 911? And we will start with Glenna.
Oh, I knew you were going to do that. Okay, to welcome me, well, they gave me a job, and so I was very grateful. There was no welcoming, though. I was just so scared to walk into that police department the first day. The doors were locked. I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing. We didn't have prox cards or anything then, so I had to actually pick up the phone, the payphone. Yes, there were payphones back then.
Oh.
Out in front of the station to call dispatch, and the dispatcher didn't even answer me, just hung up the phone. When I said, "Oh, hi, I'm Glenna, I'm here, I'm a trainee," and she hung up the phone, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do, so I just stood there, and then somebody eventually came out and got me. So what I wish they would have done is if there was just somebody there to meet me so that I would have more confidence walking in that building and knowing that I was supposed to be there. That would have been a big help.
Awesome. Doug, what about you?
When I started back in, way early 90s.
Way back when.
Hey now. So I started with 12 people. All 12 of us started at the same time in LA, where they had 200 dispatchers to begin with. So we walked in. We didn't know anything about anything, and we really was just basically put into a classroom, and it started right away. There was just paperwork, do all this paper shuffling. Now, since I've been a supervisor for a long time, we started bringing just a simple little thing, cupcakes, put them by the door with a sign that says, "Welcome to the Highway Patrol." The new person comes through the door. Their first thing is to see these cupcakes right there, and they're like, "Oh my God, is that for me?"
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it absolutely is. And the best part of it is we had a bunch of officers hanging out in dispatch saying, "Can we have a cupcake?" I'm like, "Can you wait till the new person shows up?" It's like, by the time the new person shows up, there's a bunch of officers standing there going, "Can we have a cupcake?" And they're like, "Sure." Kind of like brought them all together. It was a great thing. And we took a picture of people when they first started so they can have it when they do retire.
Yep.
Love it.
What about you?
I was thinking about that first day, and I'll start with this instead. So I'll go with the day that I was hired. The day that I was hired, I didn't know that I was actually getting hired. I thought I was going in there for a second interview to like progress in this whole process. And I remember I'm sitting there with the deputy director. Her name is Jan, and there was a girl coming in, a very good friend of mine still to this day. Her name is Alexis, and it was her first day. And I remember her walking in with with some books and stuff, and it was all her training stuff. It was her first day on her own, and they're like, "You're gonna do great," and she's like, "Oh, just kind of, nervous." But everyone was like, "You're gonna do great. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be just
that's
good." And she goes in, and I'll never forget that. And when I was getting ready to leave from my second interview there, or what I thought was my second interview to progress, the deputy director, or I said to her, actually, was like, "So what's next?" And she goes, "Oh, well, you're hired." And I said,
"Oh, yay!"
Like, "Wait a minute, I got the job?" And she goes, "Yeah." She goes, "You're the only one that we chose." And I went, "Oh, out of all those people?" And she goes, "You're the only one who progressed. You're the only one that we wanted to continue everything with.
Wow.
You got the job." So that was huge. Like that was a huge confidence booster. The first night, however, I walk in and it's a midnight shift, and it was a botched suicide call that I listened to with my trainer. But it was just like, "Welcome." And I said, "All right."
Welcome.
Oh.
For our
hired.
big changes that we made is we now assign a training team. So not only do they meet their first trainer, but also the trainer when they bounce between shifts. They know who all their trainers are going to be in advance, so they can start talking to them when they first come in on the first day. So they know that they have a trainer on the day shift, an afternoon shift, and a midnight shift, and they know who they will be in advance, and they get to meet them. But we're going to kind of progress now to what's the first call. We're going to bounce it back to Ricardo that really stuck with you, because 911 can be a stressful job. So what's the first call that stuck with you when you first started?
Oh, man. Yeah, so we're gonna get deep then.
Yeah.
Some of you know my story, and some of you do not. I started dispatching in Central Florida, and the one there's several, but this one will always be with me because it was my first night alone. Small police department. I was dispatching by myself, 8 hours. The chief was getting ready to leave. He was a little more nervous than I was to leave me there. And I told him everything would be fine. You listen to the radio anyway, so if something goes down, you'll come back or you'll call or something.
Sure, you won't be asleep.
And, yeah. And up until that point, I had taken several calls, but this was my very first suicidal one, or suicide call. But it wasn't an actual call. It was a lady who had actually run in and really face to face. So hold on. Let me continue with the story. It wasn't her who had done this. The chief was ready to leave. She screeches up, runs in, just keeps yelling. I found him. And we get the chief goes over, and this is just across diagonal from the police department, and so it's real close. It's just right there. So the chief goes, the officer on duty, and I'm left with this lady there who found her husband who had hung himself. They were separated, trying to figure out whether they wanted to continue their marriage. She wanted to, so went back to tell him, and he had killed himself. I called family for her. They ended up leaving. Officer comes back and has the suicidal note. I wanted to read it. Like, I had my closure. I knew what had happened, but there was still something there, and it bothered me. And the officer asked me, because he saw me trying to look at it, and he goes, "Do you want to read it?" And I said, "Yeah, man. I need to know why this guy got to this point." And it just basically said that he loved his wife and their kids so much, and he wished that they could have worked out. And even thinking about it now, as I'm getting goosebumps, I just keep thinking, man, if you just would have waited, a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Would have been telling the story. But that was my first and one that sticks with me.
That's intense.
Wow. Doug, what do you got?
I'm not going after that. Forget it. No, I think just to kind of like make it a little bit different. I remember the first call I actually took by myself. It was right around the first times. I pick up the 901, and this is way back before we had caller ID and Annie Alley and all that stuff. So I answered the call. Girl says, I said, 901 emergency, can I help you? And she said, "You can't help me." And I'm like, "I swear I can." She goes, "No, you can't." I'm going back and forth with her saying, "No, really, I can help you." And I'm all like getting emotional about this thing, going, "I can help you." And then I see the girl stand up in front of me, and she was one of the other people playing a joke on me. And I'm like, "Don't ever do that to me again." I'm like, I was so new that I was just like, ah. And she goes, "You just got to keep going, man." And I'm like, that's just intense when you first get released from training and you get a call and you're kind of like, I don't even think I'm ready for that kind of stuff. And then she's playing with me saying, "You can't help me." And I'm like, "Yes, I can." Yeah. And I'm like, oh my God, I want to leave now.
Yep.
I will tell you this. My trainer was pretty upset about that though. She said, "Don't ever do it again."
Glenna, what's the call that stuck with you within your first few years?
Well, I'm looking over at the comments and I see Dina. It's same call, Dina, that I had. I was actually out of training and I was training somebody else. So I really was not involved in it, but it was the worst call that we've ever handled. And it was a baby in a pool. It was a missing critical, a 2-year-old that had been missing for about an hour before we found him face down in a neighbor's pool. And it was just so intense. So not having anything to do, and my emotions are running high. My trainee is on the radio having to, really take care of things. And I'm behind her crying, not able to help her. And that was it was the most difficult call I've ever handled, just because there was nothing we could do there. And as a trainer, I literally could not do anything. The baby was even wearing the same swim trunks that my 2-year-old at home was wearing. Wow. So it was really difficult. I went home and I threw those swim trunks out. The helicopter that was looking for him is the airship that ended up landing next to the pool, and one of the guys from the airship got out and picked up the baby from the pool while one of our sergeants was getting on scene. And there was almost a tug of war to get that kid out of the pool to start CPR, but it was too late. So it was by far the worst call we've ever handled, just because there was no debriefing afterwards. There was nothing. So it was about 2 years in. It wasn't right when I got out of training, but it was awful, and I will never forget it ever.
And for me, it was very similar. It was a CPR call, but our agency used to transfer the call to the ambulance service that would respond. And so they were still on the phone, but we lost contact with them, and the ambulance was trying to help them. We did send them help. The person didn't make it. But the reason it sticks with me is because the call ended up in the newspaper with a letter to the editor saying 911 dispatchers don't just hang up. And they wrote that whole story, and that was the call that I took. And I knew I wanted to make a difference, and I'm proud to say I got rehired back at the agency I started at, and our dispatchers are now trained in emergency medical dispatch, and we no longer transfer the calls, but the ambulance still dispatches themselves, and we now offer those pre-arrival instructions, and that was closure for me to be able to provide those instructions for other people. But with our employees, Glenna, that get to that 3 to 5 year mark, and you're trained in peer support and everything else, why don't you take it away and ask us a few questions about what we can do to keep our employees in the 911 profession and make sure we're aware of these type of calls?
Okay, great. So yeah, like he said, I do run the peer support program in my agency. So I'm the touchy-feely one. So get ready. No, just kidding. You should see the look on Doug's face. There we go. Every time I go to start asking questions, Doug gets really nervous.
Oh, God.
So the first question that I want to ask is, when you were, from the time you got out of training until maybe about the 5 year mark, when was it that you guys took a step back and went, like, this is real, like, this is intense, is this what I signed up for? And did you ever realize that this is what your job was going to be? So think about like 5 years in or 3 years in, everybody has that aha moment. So when was it for you, Doug, that you were like, okay, this is real, and this is, I need to like do what I can to make sure that this profession, like, I stay on my game?
Yeah, I can harken back to the mid 90s working in Orange County, California. And I was on a ride along with an officer, young officer, kind of a new guy. His dad's a sergeant. He's an officer, and we're out giving tickets and stuff. And he's a fun guy to hang out with. The very next week, we're at work. We received a call from a citizen saying, hey, your officer's laying here in this Chevron parking lot dead. And we're like, oh my God. And we're like going through the priority trying to figure out who it was. We didn't have AVL at that time, automatic vehicle location, nothing of that stuff. So we sent a bunch of officers down there. He just made a simple traffic stop, and the guy was a gangbanger, got out of the car, killed him, took his patrol car and took off. And that one stuck with me for such a long time. It still does to this day. And that kind of just reminded me of the serious job we actually have, and that people will kill our officers for nothing. And it just, that's why ever since that date on, I've always been very concerned when I meet officers, and I'm always like, hey, be careful out there. It's dangerous. It's like, especially if you don't see them wear a vest. And it's like, are you crazy not to wear a vest out there? I mean, to me, that just makes the job it made it way more serious. And at that time, they didn't have debriefings for us. So basically, we just went home and said, whatever. So,
and said, okay, here we go.
Yeah, it was very difficult. So, yeah, that was my come to Jesus moment right there.
Joe, what about you? Did you have like Doug said, come to Jesus moment where you realized, oh my gosh, this is a career, and this is something that I really need to take seriously?
Yeah, I did. It was almost right away. They put me on the main police dispatch, and they called out what we use as code 1, which means officer in trouble, for us at least. And they were surrounded, and they couldn't get back on the radio, and I was calling them, and we had backup going. And it's a fortunate story because the officers were okay. But
Good.
What that did to me the first time I ever heard officer in trouble was it told me that I need to be a reliable person, a person whose voice is calm and reassuring on the radio. Make sure that my attitude is in check so that they know they're getting the help they want. And it really gave me that drive to make sure that as a 911 dispatcher, I'm a crucial point to protecting the emergency responders that we dispatch for. And that happened early on in my career, and I'm fortunate that it did, and that the officers are okay. I mean, honestly, we don't want any of those, but that still drives me to this day to make sure that I'm on my A game. And I don't get a dispatch hardly ever anymore, but when I was dispatching, because I run the center now, but when I was on the, I wanted to make sure I was just doing my absolute best each and every day because of that incident.
Wow.
Very good. Okay. Ricardo, share.
Wow.
Share, Ricardo.
Right here.
Share.
Say it now. Speak.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it was right off in the beginning. That same call that I told you about. That was working there at that center in Central Florida. That was my first anything. That's where I started out my dispatching career. So that happens, and I remember sitting there afterwards for a little while and thinking, damn, what did I get myself into? Yeah. Up until that point, it was just, medicals here and there, some minor calls. It wasn't anything to that magnitude. So that was one of the things that, really put me in that, that mindset that this is real shit. Like there's a lot of stuff here. And then years later, even when I'm working at Allegan County Central Dispatch, and one of my former coworkers and friend, childhood friend Megan is in here. There were a few calls during that time as well where I had one of those moments. When I was in training, one of my trainers that I'm still good friends with today, Tammy, excellent trainer. I remember I was taking a domestic. It was my first big domestic that I was taking, and I could not get the information to go into this old AS400 CAD that we had. And I remember looking over to her, and I covered the phone, and I said, you might have to take this call because I can't get it through there. And she pretty much put a foot in my ass. Not that hard, but just to say, no, you can do this. You've got this. Just basically like take a deep breath and continue doing it. And I did it. And I got through it. And afterwards, she said, well done. You did it. And I remember feeling, really good about it as well. And from that point on, like those domestics were the ones that those were it sounds weird for anybody out of the industry to hear, but those were my favorite calls to take were domestics. And those were the ones. And that's
why is that
my moment. I think it was because, one, because it's high priority, but I'm doing so much and I'm there to help people.
That's true.
And that's what really was the driving force on all of that. And Doug did drop off here. He says he's not sure what happened. It says that Tim says he got voted off. Maybe.
He got voted off the island. Yeah. Well, every single one of us have talked about, what made it real for us. And so that leads into what I want to talk about. The 3 to 5 year employee, you got through training, and training was hard. And once you got through the training and you got into there, it was either hard because the training itself was hard. My trainer she was a badass. She was great, amazing. She really stuck with me when she probably shouldn't have. And really made it worth my while. But then there's also some that training's hard because they say, well, there's a phone. All you got to do is answer it, figure it out, and there's no support. But once you get out of the training and you're sitting in there and you're going, okay, well, what now? If you start to look back, so much has changed and you have changed. And somebody even commented on here, like, you've got 2 years to decide if this is what you want to do, because after that, you are completely changed and you won't want to leave. That's really true. You either completely change and you run, or you don't want to leave. So let's talk about burnout, compassion fatigue, and secondary trauma a little bit. And instead of asking a bunch of questions, I want you guys to just kind of jump in or say, oh, yeah, I've seen that, or no, that hasn't been my experience. Compassion fatigue is real. It's called caregiver syndrome or burnout, and it happens to people that are caregivers. And all of us in here, every single person, I imagine 1,797 people in this forum, were caregivers. We do want to serve, whether it's We want to serve our officers or our firefighters or our paramedics, but we also want to serve the public, or at least that's probably what we got in here for. I don't know. The paycheck is still pretty nice for me, but
wow.
But there comes a point when we're giving and we're giving and we're giving, and we're not getting what we need from.
It's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that they don't, like, for the majority of my career, we weren't included in any debriefings or nothing. I mean, it was just basically, you're a bunch of dispatchers. You guys don't have any issues going on. You're air conditioned building. Just hang out.
Yep.
And it wasn't until we started doing that that we were like, you suddenly realize that you've been hiding all these emotions for so long that they're just sitting here waiting to come out, and now they're going to come out in bizarre ways and create all kinds of havoc. And
exactly, yes.
I don't wish that on anybody at this time. I mean, I'm so glad there's so many peer support things and critical incident stress debriefings and all that stuff. You really need to have that kind of thing.
And
you really do, yes.
Just been the personal growth, the challenge to grow myself personally and professionally, doing these conferences at Dare to Be Great and meeting the 1,700 people that are commenting. Also get involved in your own state chapters, Nina and APCO, and going to conferences, bringing people like Doug to the state conferences to talk, or myself or Ricardo. I had both of them come to Iowa and speak at our conference, and meeting other 911 dispatchers. You get some of the best ideas by networking. And the more you continue to network, the more ideas you're going to have. I loved watching all the comments earlier about what they do to welcome new people, and other people telling their stories as this session is going along, because that's what We Speak Dispatch sessions are truly about. So when I start suffering from compassion fatigue, I tell myself, start to grow within the profession, start to grow within yourself, reach out to somebody that's maybe experienced these things. And to meet all these excellent 911 professionals everywhere I've been and on this conference is what continues to drive me. So thank you to everybody that's watching today. This isn't possible without you.
Yes, and you're correct. This is what drives us. So when I first started watching Ricardo's Within the Trenches podcast, the Open Mic Live, which, by the way, is hilarious. Even my husband is pretty obsessed and hooked on it. He watches it with me, and we make comments to Ricardo, and we just have so much fun. But once I started watching it, he said something that has so stuck with me, and it actually helped propel me into like the next era for me. And he said, this is the era of the headset. This is so true. Gone are the days where we as dispatchers sit back and wait to get recognition. We're doing it ourselves. If we're not going to debriefings, we're doing it ourselves. If we aren't part of the department after action reports and debriefing, we're making that happen. As dispatchers, we're making that happen. I hope all the supervisors are on here, are pushing for their employees to get, wellness benefits and critical incident stress debriefings. However, what I have seen and what I just love about the Within the Trenches podcast and Showalter and Company and 911 Gold Line training, it's all about the dispatchers. It's all about us taking control, and education is such an important part to help compassion fatigue and to help you bounce back from that burnout. And we're all doing it. There's so much available to us now. I do, and I am going to give myself a free little plug. I recently just started the 911 Wellness Project, and a lot of that was because of that statement right there. It's the era of the headset. I thought, okay, it's time, because it is time for us to realize that we as individuals and we collectively as a community, this is a profession, and it's such an important profession that we need to support each other. We need to support ourselves. We need to have a work-life balance. We need to have a support system, or we're not going to make it through to retirement. Doug, I'm so proud of you that you've actually retired from this line of work. It doesn't happen very often, even still. And I saw somebody on here that said, Dina said, I retired and go back 1 to 2 days a week when I want. I love that. It's a good paycheck for me. You know what? That's so great that you can actually retire from this and go past that and live a full life. So let me just wrap this up really quick. Let's talk about, we all have done really good things. Everybody has done really good things with 911 just because of who we are. But I want to know what's the most important thing in your life And what's one thing that you do that's not public safety related? And y'all have answered this question before. So, Ricardo, we're going to start with you. Most important thing in your life?
Well, my family, of course.
Of course. Okay. And what is one thing you do that is not public safety related that you do for fun?
I play a lot with my kids. I think I've mentioned this before, but we recently started creating like commercials.
Yeah.
Random shit. It's not even real stuff. We created this this swing competition. My daughters were on swings and they were competing, and I would count down from 3, and then they would have to stop, and the first person to stop would win. And I completely improvised all of this, just saying, ladies and gentlemen, here we are for the swing championships, and we have Lola on this side and Livy on this side, which I call her Biv. So the Bivinator. So she's like, no, it's the Bivinator. So then I have to start it all over again.
Retake.
They have their little interviews and stuff, and so that's one of the things we do. We play around like that.
That's cool. Wow.
And Joe, tell me, most important thing to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a family and friends. And the thing that I like to do for fun, and sometimes I don't like talking about it, especially on podcasts or whatever like this, because it makes me sound like I'm patting myself on the back. But I do that. But I like to pay it forward. And that is what I do for the most fun. And ironically, I'm just going to share the story that I did this morning. I went and got a fresh haircut. So that's looking good, I think, or whatever. But anyhow, I went in and I did the check-in online at this haircut place, and there was an elderly gentleman sitting there, and he was waiting. And I felt bad that I came in because the lady had said, if nobody walks in, she must have told him that right before I walked in. And she goes, now it's going to be the next lady that's going to cut your hair, as I cut right in front of him. And so as I got up, the lady's checking me out, and I said, I'm paying for my haircut and the person that waited for me to get my haircut. And I said, but don't say anything to him. I want to walk out. And that's the type of stuff I do. I like to spend some time donating time to nonprofit charities, donating money, reading about them, making a difference when people don't know you're making a difference. And for me, that's what makes me feel good.
I love that. Doug, take it away.
Well, I got a free haircut today, so somebody.
Older gentleman.
I didn't know how old he was going to say older gentleman is. It's like, wow.
Well, what, 20?
Yeah, I'm like, wow. I mean, obviously, the most important thing to me is Jill. I mean, she's the hard worker behind the scenes of Showalter and Company. She does everything for that company. I basically just go and do it. But she does all the behind the scenes negotiations and all that stuff. So it's nice to have her doing that, and she works full time and does that. So it's a big deal for her to do that kind of stuff. So that's big. And I think what we like to do is, obviously we spend time with friends. We just had a friend of ours here, came all the way to Tennessee, and we had fun with her and her husband. And it's just, I love to go to the history places and stuff. I'm in Middle Tennessee, where we have nothing but a lot of history here, which is great. Because almost daily I drive through the battlefields and stuff just to I just love to be there in that thing and see it. So that's something for me.
Okay, so my answer, of course, family is the most important thing to me, and we do everything outdoors. We travel, we camp. One of the episodes we did for We Speak Dispatch in the Pacific Northwest, we were hunting Sasquatch, and we went to film an episode. We were camping a mile away from where that famous photo is, so that was so much fun. Nice. So I just wanted to wrap this up and kind of give everybody an idea. See, we're all human beings right here. And even though our career is so important and so needed, so is validity, so is validating that we do have a very important career. And then also when we talk about the work and the life balance, nobody here said work was their most important thing. It was family. So we may not be able to spend the quantity of time we want to spend with our family because of this job, but we spend quality time with our family. So push for those critical incident stress debriefings. Make sure you have a good support system for you, and then make sure that you are being recognized for what you do in your center. And if your supervision isn't doing it, then you be the advocate for your partners and you recognize them. Mm-hmm. So that's what I want to talk to the 3 to 5 year employees about. But Doug, now let's turn it over to you.
Wow.
Talk about from recruit. How does an agency recruit to leaving that lasting legacy for the department?
Sure. Yeah. It's and I do want to say I went to see a speaker one time, and she said something really stuck with me, which was have aggressive personal time management. She said, in our business, you have to fight to spend time away from our job because our job is so consuming. And when I was working, I mean, I would have my pager on our pager. Gee, I'm in the crick. I would have
You're old. Come on.
Oh my God. No, I left my cell phone on all night, and it would ring periodically, and I'd have to go into work at 2:00 in the morning, something that should happen or whatever. It was just constant. When we were away on vacation, whatever, it just constantly came up. And I'm like, I know pager people. We know. I said. Anyway, I was on the payphone today earlier. No, there's no payphone. No. So it is that our job is so unique. But I find such people, I hear all the time people say, Doug, we just can't find good people. We just can't have good people. We can't get them. The good people won't apply for this job. And I'm like, what are you doing to help them get that job? And a lot of people just rely on someone else to do it. Well, we have HR, and HR is going to tell us what you can't go help and do something with that. And that people are always, I just meet so many people that are just so, well, I have to let somebody else do recruitment. And I'm like, you can do recruitment too. You can find good people. So on that note, how do y'all find good people for your agency? How do you see some people? I'm from Middle Tennessee now. How y'all do that? So how do you guys do that? Ricardo, did you find people for the business?
Oh man.
Did you?
I mean,
let's talk about within the trenches.
Yeah.
That's a hard one because, like I said, I was a supervisor. I wasn't involved in a lot of that stuff, but I mean, there was a lot of different recruitment. I mean, we would have people come in, and a lot of times, some of those people were friends of ours that would hang out with us and learned about things, and they would get interested. And we would bring them in. They would do a sit-along. That was a big thing, was the sit-along.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, there wasn't a lot of that. But now with, and I have to give her a plug, of course, my friend Megan, she's the training coordinator there. They have done so much different stuff now that, they're able to bring a bunch of people in. I have met people there now because I go back every now and then, and there are so many people there that I don't know.
Yeah.
But it is good because they're recruiting and they're keeping them. But those sit-alongs, man, those are definitely needed. And then also going through the training process, you do the ride-alongs and continue that interest. I'm going to mention something really quick because I missed it on the last part for, kind of the burnout piece. But man, if you see people that are, kind of being, short with others, or they're just having an overall, just an off attitude, I'll just leave it at that. Because I was there at that time. And when I hit that burnout, and in order for me to stay as well too, was I had to find another way to relight my fire and passion for 911.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I loved what I did. I still love the job. I miss it. And I love this industry. But with everything combined, county politics, short staffing, all that bullshit, it was just weighing down on me. It wasn't until I went back to school and started 10 years ago now, started all of this, the podcast, everything. That's how I refueled. It was finding something that I really enjoyed, but that was with 911. So with those people that you might find that with, and with recruitment and everything, give them a little bit more to do, and recognize what it is that they're doing, and that will refuel people.
What's cool about that is the fact that I use your stuff when I'm teaching classes, saying, "Have you guys seen this? Why don't you talk about this?" Because it does re-inspire people to say, "Oh, damn, we're not alone in this thing. We are part of a cool thing. We need to kind of feel that way." So I definitely do that. Joe, what do you do to recruit people in?
I think it starts with everybody in the department. And what I mean by that is your employees are your most important asset in your department. And if you can have happy employees and they want to brag about your agency and then use social media when you post a job posting, and you have employees within your own organization that are willing to take the post from the agency and say, come work with us. We're awesome to work with and everything else. But that all starts with leadership. And so I think that the leadership of the department needs to look at themselves, see what they're doing for their employees, see what they can do to improve their work atmosphere, because if they're happy employees, they're going to be actively engaged in the recruiting process. And when they start sharing stuff on social media and you see that message 3 and 4 and 5 different times from different people, that must be a place that you want to work at. And I'm proud to say that over the last few years, I've seen more and more people in our department start to share those posts. And that means that we're doing better as a manager and a leader, and it truly starts at the top, because if they want to work for you, so will other people. So, and then if you're an employee, I would challenge you to look at yourself and say, once they come in the door or during the process, are you giving your management and leadership ideas to where we can improve the process and things we can do to get more applicants involved? And it takes everybody get involved. But again, I just think that people that want to work at your agency are going to be your best recruiters.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's it. How about you, Glenna? What do you guys do over there?
You know,
I think you're fully staffed, though, so, you know.
I'm sorry?
I think you're fully staffed over there, but whatever.
No, we are down 3.
What?
Well, no, okay, maybe not. Maybe we're only down 1. I don't remember. But we have a lot of people in training, so we're actually down. But you are right, Doug. We are very innovative in our agency, and it's a really good place to work.
Yeah.
So how I get involved, I am a line level dispatcher, and so I do a couple of things. Internally, I make sure that morale is good. I make sure that my morale is good, and then I make sure that it's a good working environment, because it can get very toxic in dispatch. And who would want to come in? And then when you do sit-alongs, who would want to come in and sit around in a toxic environment and be like, oh, yeah, I want to sit for this. People are chewing each other out and stabbing each other in the back. Yeah, that's for me. So also social media. When my agency posts things on social media about a partner of mine or about an officer, I engage and I talk and I say, you know, way to go. And if somebody has a question on social media, I'll answer it. And during Dispatch Appreciation Week, they put my picture up on Facebook, and I'm proud to say I had the most likes and the most comments of any social media post that my agency has ever had. But because I engaged with the community, and from that I had about 10 or 15 private messages about, can you tell me what it's like to be a dispatcher? And this is just from the public. And 2 of those have now applied, not for my agency, but for another county agency. And one of them is now a dispatcher. So you have to put yourself out there. When I'm at dinner, I know this sounds funny, but when I'm at dinner, like especially near where I work, if this waitress is like on top of her game and she's like doing all kinds of stuff, I hand her a business card. If you ever want to change professions, give me a call. Even if it's not at my agency, we need people like you that can multitask, that are on their game, that can do a million things at once, that strive in a stressful environment.
Sure.
And my family gets so embarrassed when I do that, but that's how you actively recruit. You guys are all laughing at me. I see Ricardo up there laughing, but he's shaking his head. Yes, he knows what I'm talking about.
I'm just thinking of the kind of restaurants you go to, but I'm not going to say anything else. Anyway, so I will tell you that many years ago, I was doing a training class at a sheriff's department in Southern California, and the sheriff was telling me that we make all of our people recruitment. And I'm like, how do you do that? And he said, we give them this card that we came up with that says, hey, we noticed you got really good customer service skills. We're looking for people just like you. And it had all the recruitment information on the back. And I'm like, that's such a great idea. So I brought it up to my agency and said it. And I was just training the other day at an agency. I don't say where, but I was telling them that exact same story. And half of them said, yeah, I think we have something like that. And the other half said, do we have something like that? And I'm like, people, they gave me a card and it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing that says like, hey, we've seen what you're doing. This could be you. It talks about the thing. I don't want to show the card because it's got the name of the agency on it, but it's got this thing that says this could be you. And it's in front of a keyboard right there. And on the back, it's got all the recruitment information. Not only that, so they said they put out these cards all the time and just some people take them, some people don't. And I'm like, my God. And then their director told me if they recruit somebody to fill out an application, they get $50. $50. He's got it in his own pocket. He pays out of his own thing $50. And I'm like, that is totally cool. So I'm like, that's making everybody a recruiter in your own agency. And that's what it should be. We shouldn't have to wait for somebody to recruit people. Like Glenn said, if you're at some place, I've been to Target where I've seen somebody behind the counter ringing up like crazy, good attitude, all this stuff. It's like, why are you working at Target, friend? You should be working over here at the Highway Patrol with John and Ponch and the rest of the crew. So
you just dated yourself again.
I got beeped a second ago, so I had to get my beeper going. But it's one of those things where it's like we talk about recruitment and we talk about how important it is to our agency to bring in the right people. I say everybody should be a recruiter, every single person. And when I hear people say, Doug, we're not allowed to do that kind of thing. You're not allowed to go to the market. You're not allowed to go to the store and see somebody doing a great job saying, why are you working here, man? Come work with us. We're looking for good people. Wouldn't you rather recruit the person that's working next to you that you know is quality as opposed to somebody that just applied for the job going, well, I've been on unemployment for 52 weeks. I need to fill out some applications. Really? So we want to have that stuff. Here's one thing that I did at my agency. Let me see if any of you done it. You know, Coffee with a Cop. Everybody does Coffee with a Cop.
Yes.
That crazy. Probably not during COVID, but when that's over. But we used to do Coffee with a Cop, and I said, how come we can't involve dispatchers? And they said, do you guys really want to go? And I'm like, I'll go. Yes.
Yes.
And I said, but I'm not going to do Coffee with a Cop because I'm not a cop. So they said, okay. And I said, how about Danish with a dispatcher?
Boom.
So we made cool flyers. We have flyers up there. If you want to see it, you can send me an email. I'll send you the flyer that said, have Danish with a dispatcher. We went to Starbucks. We took the place over. We were wearing the green aprons, making drinks, talking to the public. It was a great way to get our message out there. Has anybody done that?
No, you're the only agency that I've ever heard that's done that. Has anybody done it? Let's see. Oh, I like daiquiri with a dispatcher. Don's got it. Daiquiri with a dispatcher.
Daiquiri.
Oh, donuts with dispatch.
There you go. That's the thing. It is an easy thing to do. You just got to volunteer to do these things and say, hey, I can help. I'll go for free. I never got paid to go to these things. It was on my days off, but I got paid in the long run when we had quality people working there. So it's something to definitely think about.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get out of here, and I know we only got about maybe 8 minutes left. So my timer's going.
Mine says we have more. Why is that so big, Doug?
So anyway, I try to always, in my classes, no matter where I go, no matter what I talk about, I always try to talk about an important thing to me is your legacy. What are you leaving behind? You've had your fingerprints on so many things with so many calls and saved so many lives. And I will tell you, I went to Wisconsin one time and I don't know if she's on this thing or not, but I met her once in Vegas when I was right across from Ricardo. She was in my big class and came up and said, I'm the person from Wisconsin. But I was in Wisconsin. I'm walking down the hallway with this director of 901, and we walk to the hall right leading to the dispatch center. And on this side are all these just cheap paper cutout hearts, just little paper cutout hearts taped to the wall. And on this side of the wall was little pink and blue storks, just cheap. Cut out paper just on the wall. And I'm like, damn, people like to have a lot of kids and get married a lot. Wow, it's a lot. And she goes, no, Doug. These are lives they've saved, and these are babies they've delivered. And I'm like, dear God. She goes, can you imagine every day they walk to work down this hallway thinking these people are alive because of what you do? And I'm like, damn, that's a powerful statement to make out there. And it's you think about the legacy. I don't do EMD. I never did do it. But just to think you're saving somebody's life without going to see them, without touching that person, but you're going to be that person that steps in and does it. And it's so powerful to think of your legacy of people are alive because of what we do. It's just the most incredible thing. And some people just throw it away and say it's nothing. And I have to sometimes remind people of what they actually do. I was sitting with a brand new dispatcher in Los Angeles City Fire, our county fire, and she just got released off training. I'm out there sitting with her because I want to watch EMD go down. So I'm sitting with her, and she's brand new, so she's putting up Post-its everywhere on her position, and I'm like, oh, my God. And she's talking to me. She's like, oh, my God, I went to the store the other day, and I bought some stuff. And I'm like, dear Lord, answer a call. So she signs on, answers a call. The very first call, she gets this guy who's choking. And you can hear his kid on the phone saying, my dad's choking. What do I do? And she goes, listen very carefully. Do this, do this, do this. Come on, you can do this. Do this, do this. And you hear the guy go, oh, my God. She goes, sir, paramedics are at your door. Let them in. They come in. She disconnects. And she goes, and then I was at the mall. And I'm like, do you realize what you just did? That guy's life was right there. And you had it in your hands and you saved his life. And she goes, I never really thought about it. I'm like, I know because we don't think of the power that we have. So speaking of that, two things for each of you. One is, what was the person, do you know of anybody that worked at your agency before you? Oh, Glenna just left. Okay, thanks. Do you know anybody that worked at your agency before you? And what legacy did they leave? And what legacy are you leaving? Ricardo, it's going to be super easy for you, but what legacy are you all leaving out there? Joe, tell us your answers to these two.
I love talking about it because one of the people that I worked with when I was dispatching, I called him Hardcore Ron. And I worked with him 9 out of every 10 days. And one of the nights when I was running the warrants and everything else for officers, I got way behind. And he turned to me and said, I'm going to talk to you when it slows down. And he just told me, if your attitude was better, you have all the talent in the world. And Ron was a very meticulous person. He liked the I's dotted, the T's crossed. And he followed all of the rules and everything else. And we kind of made a good team because I'm sometimes a little bit the opposite of that, like a little more energy and stuff. And so we made a really good team, but his legacy to me was to always be professional in our job and to make sure we don't let our attitude get in the way. And it stuck with me. He was a cop that became a dispatcher. So he was a cop in the 70s and came into being a dispatcher, and I got to work with him 9 out of 10 days. And then the legacy that I want to leave is obvious from the story I shared earlier. I want to pay it forward. It's one of the reasons that, I'm doing this DISC thing and trying to get it out to as many dispatchers as possible so they can find how they interact during communication and stress. And it's on my website and everything else. I want to pay that forward to as many people as possible because I think we can start improving communication within every 911 center around the nation if we start to improve ourselves.
Joe, what is your website? What is it?
911goldlinetraining.com, and then I also launched the program 911leadershipgold.com, but it goes to the same place, and you can find information out about that and what that program is, and it actually is going on October 27th through October 29th, so that information is on the website, and that's what I'm doing right now to continue to pay it forward.
That's a good one. All right, and go ahead, Glenna, can you tell us what it is?
Why are you laughing?
Because I'm afraid you're going to go away.
I know, no kidding. So first of all, Stacy wants to know if that's a safe behind me. Yes, it is. And yes, I do live in Southern California. So we'll just kind of leave it at that. So legacies. The peer support program was started in my agency 15 years ago, and I was one of the founding members, like a founding father. So that's kind of a big deal for me, but that's department wide. But for dispatch, the legacy, I love to train, and I think I'm a good training officer. And so when I train somebody, I always make sure that they have every single little bit of knowledge that I have in me by the time they get out of training. So if that's their starting point, think how amazing they're going to be in 10 years.
Yeah.
So that's always my goal. And I've seen it. I mean, cause I've been there for 24 years. Yes. I started when I was 5.
Your beeper.
But, yeah, exactly. With my beeper and watching Chips. So yes, I think that's a really significant legacy, hopefully, that I'm going to be leaving. But also like those that came before me and those that I work with now. My supervisor, she's actually on here, so I'm just going to give her kind of a free plug. But I just see how she interacts with the dispatchers and how she trains them. She is a supervisor. These are tenured dispatchers, and she's still training them and teaching them. And that's a big deal. When they leave the dispatch center, they're more educated than when they came in on that shift. That's huge.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Yeah. All right. Ricardo, this is going to be a tough one for you, I'm sure. So.
Well, I'll start with this. So when I was dispatching in Allegan, and if Megan is still here, she'll know what I'm talking about. But there was a guy that we worked with. His name was Rob, and great trainer. And I would listen to him take suicidal calls. And one of the things that I took from him was how he would talk to people. And if someone called and they were, at their end, he would learn certain things about them. Like, what's your favorite music? What's your favorite types of movies or whatever? And he would find that out and just talk to the person. Just be human. He would talk to them and help would get there. And they would say, thank you. And
damn,
do that. So I took that with me where I had taken a suicidal call once where it was a lady who was having extreme back pain, and I had been having back pain, dealing with my own issues actually, and from my experience and discovering yoga and really getting into it, I told her about it. I found out what was going on, and I talked to her, and with Rob in mind, and I was able to help her. And she told me, thank you at the end, that she was going to look into doing yoga. I ended up sharing it as an I Am 911 story. And from then, with everything that I've done, all I've wanted to do, legacy-wise, is to just simply leave a mark on an industry that I love so much.
And there you go. And you've done it, or you're doing it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've left
you've
left a big mark is what you've left, not just a mark. You've left a big mark.
Yeah,
yes.
it's and that's the thing. I mean, I think you can be super proud of that mark you've left, and because some people just go through their whole career and they don't even think about what they're doing in the future and stuff. And I will tell you that my legacy is because I was trained by such a great person, Sandy Hill. Sandy left this image of how training should be. It shouldn't be a four-letter word. Training should be fun. And she made it a good experience for me that I carried forward. And everybody I trained after that was the same way. And I think in my career, I've hired probably close to 200 dispatchers. And it's like when I see them becoming way successful, more than me, becoming in charge of main things, I'm like, that's cool that they got their start when I interviewed them and said, all right, let's take a chance. And I think that's kind of a cool legacy to leave, of saying your fingerprints are on all these people, saying we've hired them, we've trained them, we've provided them with guidance or whatever, and now they're on their own out there. So I hope everybody that's listening, and I will tell you one little plea right now. We're at $17.99. One more log on, for God's sake. I don't care how.
Grab somebody.
There's that.
But I ask each one of you, please leave that legacy. Don't leave a scar. Leave a nice mark on this career we've got. We've had a great career, and it's important we just continue thinking to ourselves, what's my legacy going to be next? What's the next thing I'm going to do? I mean, I think all of us have a great time on We Speak Dispatch. We have such a fun conversation with each other, and I like surprising them with questions. They like surprising me. So if you don't get a chance to tune in for that, that's a big thing. Joe, do you want to tell everybody where they can listen to us at on podcast?
Yeah, on podcast, they can reach us at Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Pocket Cast, Breaker, Overcast, Stitcher, Radio Public, Castbox, or maybe some other podcast that you may listen to.
Plus, we're on YouTube. We're on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. So, and the deal is this. We asked Ricardo to join us, but you can join us too if you'd like. You can send us a thing and say, hey, I want to join the group over there, and we'll bring you up for questions or whatever. I love to talk to people in the business because you all are leaving that mark out there, and thank you for getting to 1,800. So, yay us.
Yay. All right.
All right.
All right. Well, we definitely appreciate Ricardo. Thanks for bringing us on and having us do our little spiel here today. So I'm glad you could join us, and you have left a huge legacy on this.
You really have, Ricardo. You really have. So thank you. Thank you for this conference. Thank you for open mic. Thank you for Within the Trenches. All of it just points to this is the era of the headset, and we all appreciate it. We're trying to make you cry here. Don, help us out here.
I was almost there.
Thank you for all that, Ricardo, but more importantly, thank you for being a friend to not only us, but to the whole 911 profession. You're a true friend to everybody, man, and thank you. Thank you.
And hey, Leslie just put in there, and she's a good reminder, we do have our decals available to anybody who wants to get one that says you can join our fan club for We Speak Dispatch, saying you speak dispatch too. So if you want one of those, go to our Facebook page, send us an email or a comment on there, and we'll definitely help you out with that. So there he is. I'm so appreciative of it. Thanks very much for everybody.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all very much for joining us in this session. And then we are going into the final session.
Good luck, Don.
Yeah, we'll be there with Don Jones. It is going to be a great one. You don't want to miss it. I will bring all of you with me here in just a moment.
Here we go.
Everyone.